The rain started exactly when they lowered my father's casket into the ground. Fitting, I thought, watching the drops darken the polished mahogany. Even in death, Marcus Chen commanded the weather. I stood at the grave's edge, black dress clinging to my shoulders, aware of every eye on me. Not mourning eyes, calculating eyes. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My husband Trevor's hand found the small of my back, warm and possessive. To everyone watching, it looked like comfort. I knew better. His fingers drummed against my spine in that particular rhythm he only used when counting money. The inheritance. He was already spending it. "You okay, babe?" His voice carried just enough volume for the crowd to hear. The devoted husband. The supportive partner. I nodded, not trusting my voice. 48 hours ago, my father had been alive. 48 hours ago, I'd been eating lunch with him at his favorite dim sum place, laughing at his terrible jokes about the stock market. Then the heart attack, sudden, violent, final. The funeral director gestured for people to disperse. The ceremony was over. Dad was gone, and the vultures were circling. "Ms. Chen?" A woman approached, her black suit crisp despite the rain. Mid-50s, silver hair pulled back severely, eyes that missed nothing. "I'm Patricia Morrison, your father's attorney. We need to speak, today if possible." Trevor's hand tightened on my back. "Can't this wait? My wife just buried her father." Patricia's gaze slid to him like ice over glass. "Mr. Zhao, how convenient that you're here. Actually, your presence is required as well." She handed me a thick cream envelope. "The reading of the will, 3 o'clock, my office. Don't be late." She walked away before either of us could respond, her heels clicking against the wet pavement with military precision. "Pushy lawyer," Trevor muttered, but I felt the excitement thrumming through him. "Come on, let's get you home. You need rest." Rest. As if I could rest, while my whole world spun off its axis. The drive home was silent except for the rhythmic swish of windshield wipers. Trevor drove my father's Mercedes, the one Dad had left at our house last week. "Just borrowed it," he'd said. But now it was another thing Trevor was already claiming as his own. I watched his fingers on the steering wheel, expensive watch glinting. The watch I'd bought him for our anniversary. Everything he had I'd bought. But he didn't see it that way. He never had. "You know what I was thinking?" Trevor broke the silence as we pulled into our driveway. Our house. The Tudor-style home in Elmwood Heights that my father had helped me buy before I even met Trevor. Once the estate settles, we should really consider that lake house. The one up in Clearwater, 3 acres, private dock. We could finally live the life we deserve. We deserve. I climbed out of the car without responding, my heels sinking into the rain-soft lawn. Inside, the house felt empty despite being filled with furniture. Or maybe I was the empty one. "I'm going to change," I said, heading for the stairs. "Yeah, and Lily? Maybe shower too. You smell like wet cemetery." He laughed at his own joke, already loosening his tie. "I'll order Thai food. The good place, not the cheap one. We're celebrating." I stopped on the 3rd stair. Celebrating? Poor choice of words. But his grin said otherwise. "I just mean, once this all settles, things are going to be different for us. Better. Different. Better. For us." The words rattled in my head as I climbed the rest of the stairs. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my wet dress, and let myself feel it. The grief. The rage. The absolute certainty that had been crystallizing in my gut for months now. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your father prepared for this. Trust the process. Trust me. PM, Patricia Morrison, Dad's lawyer. What had Dad prepared for? And why did I feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to discover that the ground beneath me was never solid at all? I changed into jeans and a sweater, taking my time. Through the bedroom window, I could see Trevor in the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, pacing. Even from here, I could see the animation in his gestures, excited, triumphant. My phone buzzed again. This time, a voice message from my father's assistant, Helen, her voice thick with tears. Lily, honey, I know this isn't the time, but I found something in your father's desk, a file. It has your name on it, and it's marked urgent. I think you should see it before the will reading. I'm at the office now if you want to come by. I was out the door before Trevor even hung up his phone call. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained heavy and gray as I drove to my father's office building. Chen Holdings occupied the top 3 floors of the Riverside Tower downtown. Dad had built his commercial real estate empire from nothing, one property at a time. 40 years of work. And Trevor thought it was just going to fall into his lap like ripe fruit. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer than usual. When the doors opened, Helen was waiting, her eyes red-rimmed but her spine straight. She'd worked for my father for 20 years. She knew where all the bodies were buried, sometimes literally, in the cutthroat world of commercial real estate. I'm so sorry about Marcus, she said, pulling me into a hug. He was the best man I ever worked for. Thank you, Helen. You said you found something? She led me into Dad's office, and I had to stop at the threshold. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. The desk where we'd had our last conversation. The leather chair that still held the impression of his form. The window overlooking the city he'd helped build. He left specific instructions, Helen said, pulling a thick manila folder from the desk drawer. If anything happened to him, I was to give this to you immediately, before any legal proceedings. He was very clear about that. The folder was heavy in my hands. My name was written on the tab in my father's precise handwriting. Lily. Open alone. Trust no one. Trust no one. Helen, do you know what's in here? She shook her head. He sealed it himself. But Lily, your father spent the last 6 months meeting with lawyers, accountants, private investigators. He was preparing for something, or protecting against something. Private investigators. My stomach dropped. Did he say anything to you? About Trevor? About me? Helen's pause was answer enough. Finally, she spoke, choosing her words carefully. He said that sometimes the people we love need protection from the people they think they love. He said you were brilliant but had a blind spot, and that he was going to make sure that blind spot didn't destroy you. The folder seemed to pulse in my hands. I need to look at this alone. Use his office. I'll make sure no one disturbs you. Helen squeezed my shoulder. Your father loved you more than anything in this world, Lily. Whatever's in there, remember that. After she left, I sat in Dad's chair and opened the folder. The first document was a letter in his handwriting, dated 3 months ago. My dearest Lily, preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and I can only hope I've done enough to protect you from the storm that's coming. I need you to know that everything I've done, every decision I've made in these final months, has been for your safety and your future. I know about Trevor. I know everything. I hired investigators 6 months ago when I noticed discrepancies in some of my accounts. Small things that led to bigger things. What they found broke my heart, not because of the theft. Money can be replaced. But because it confirmed that my worst fears about your husband were true. Trevor Zhao has been systematically stealing from Chen Holdings. He gained access through you, through your login credentials that you shared with him. Never do this again, my love. And he's been funneling money through a complex series of shell companies for the past 2 years. The amount isn't enough to bankrupt us, but it's substantial. I've documented everything, but the theft isn't the worst of it. 6 weeks ago, my investigators discovered that Trevor has been having an affair with Melissa Hartley, the marketing VP at Hartley Properties, our biggest competitor. She's been feeding him inside information about Chen Holdings, which he's been selling to her company. This is corporate espionage, Lily. It's illegal, and it's been going on for 18 months. I have proof of all of it. Bank records, recorded conversations, photographs, emails, everything you'll need. But here's what you need to understand. Trevor knows about your trust fund, the one your grandmother left you that's been sitting untouched because you never needed it. $23 million. He's been planning to access it through you once I was gone, and you inherited my estate, making you wealthy enough that he thought he could convince you to give him control of your finances. I would have exposed him already, but I needed to protect you legally first. Everything has been reorganized. The company is safe. Your inheritance is safe, but you need to know what's coming. I'm sorry, my darling daughter. I'm sorry I didn't see this sooner. I'm sorry I can't be there to help you through what comes next, but Patricia Morrison will help you. She knows everything. She has all the evidence, and she has the plan I've put in place. At the will reading today, Trevor is going to learn that he gets nothing. Not because I'm cruel, but because he's a criminal. And criminals don't get to profit from their crimes. Stay strong. You are my daughter. You have my blood, my brain, and my determination. You will survive this. You will thrive. I love you always, Dad. My hand shook so hard the letter blurred. I had to read it 3 times before the words actually penetrated. Trevor was a thief, a liar, an adulterer, a corporate spy, and I had shared a bed with him for 4 years. The rest of the folder contained exactly what Dad had promised: bank records showing the theft, screenshots of emails between Trevor and Melissa Hartley discussing Chen Holdings' acquisition plans, photographs of them together at hotels, restaurants, her apartment, time-stamped, dated, irrefutable. There was also a report from the private investigators outlining Trevor's movements over the past 6 months. The pattern was clear. Every time I traveled for work, every time I stayed late at the office, every time I visited my father, Trevor had been with Melissa. How had I not seen it? How had I been so blind? But I knew how. I'd been so focused on work, on building my own consulting firm, on making my father proud. I'd taken Trevor at face value because it was easier than questioning everything, and Dad was right. I'd had a blind spot. Not anymore. I checked the time. 2:15 p.m. 45 minutes until the will reading. I photographed every document in the folder with my phone, uploaded them to a secure cloud storage, and then called Patricia Morrison. "I read the file," I said when she answered. "Good. Then you know what's about to happen. Can you hold it together?" "Yes." "Your father wanted you to have the choice. We can expose everything today at the reading, or we can handle it quietly." "But Lily, Trevor is dangerous when cornered. He's already in debt to some very unsavory people because of gambling debts your father's investigators uncovered. When he learns he's not getting the inheritance, he's going to panic." "I want him exposed. Publicly. I want everyone to know. Then we'll need police present. I've already arranged it, just in case. There's also one more thing your father set up." She paused. He bought out Hartley Properties 3 weeks ago. Every share. It's now a subsidiary of Chen Holdings. Melissa Hartley is about to lose her job, and Trevor is about to lose his meal ticket. Dad had waged a war, and I hadn't even known I was on the battlefield. I'll be there at 3, I told Patricia. Lily, your father also left you a video message. I think you should watch it before you come. I'm sending you the link now. The video arrived seconds later. I clicked it with trembling fingers. Dad's face filled my screen, and the grief hit me like a physical blow. He was in his office, the city skyline behind him, looking tired but determined. "Hello, my brilliant daughter," he began, and I had to pause the video to compose myself. Then I pressed play again. If you're watching this, then my heart finally gave out. The doctors told me it would, eventually. Bad genetics, too much stress, too many years of fighting in a ruthless business. But I'm not afraid of death, Lily. I'm only afraid of leaving you unprotected. By now you know about Trevor. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you while I was alive. I tried several times, but I could never find the words. How do you tell your daughter that her husband is destroying her from the inside out? That he's not just a thief, but someone who actively wishes her harm? Because that's what the investigators found in the end. Trevor has a life insurance policy on you, taken out 2 years ago. $5 million. And he's been researching accidents, ways to make your death look accidental. I don't know if he would have gone through with it, but I couldn't take that chance. So, I've done what I do best. I've built protections, legal ones, financial ones, physical ones. Patricia knows everything. Trust her. She's the smartest attorney I've ever worked with, and believe me, I've worked with many. I've also restructured everything. The company goes to you, but through a trust that Trevor can never touch. Your grandmother's money is locked in another trust, accessible only to you, with controls that prevent anyone else from influencing your decisions about it. The house is in your name alone. I had the deed changed last year. Trevor has no legal claim to any of it. What he does have is debt, gambling debt specifically, to some very dangerous people. He was planning to use your inheritance to pay them off. Now he can't. And Lily, you need to be very careful in the next few days. Desperate men do desperate things. I've arranged for private security. Patricia will give you the details. Use them, please. I know this is overwhelming. I know you're grieving and angry and probably feeling betrayed by everyone, including me for keeping this secret. But my darling daughter, you need to understand. I did this because I love you. Because you deserve a life free from parasites and predators. Because you are capable of extraordinary things, and I will not let Trevor Zhao destroy your future. You're going to get through this. You're going to rebuild. And you're going to thrive. Because you're my daughter, and we Chens don't just survive, we conquer. I love you, Lily. Always have, always will. Be fierce. Be smart. Be safe. And one more thing. Don't let this make you cynical about love. Real love exists. Your mother and I had it, brief as our time together was. You deserve it too. But next time, choose someone who sees you as a partner, not a prize. Goodbye, my sweet girl. Make me proud. The video ended. I sat in Dad's chair in his office, surrounded by the empire he'd built, and let myself cry. Not just for him, but for the marriage I'd thought I had, for the trust I'd misplaced, for the life I'd been living that turned out to be a carefully constructed lie. But underneath the grief and betrayal, something else was growing. Something hard and sharp and absolutely certain. Trevor had underestimated me. He'd seen me as his ticket to wealth, as someone to be manipulated and used. He'd seen my love as weakness. He was about to learn how wrong he was. I dried my tears, reapplied my makeup, and checked my reflection in the window. The woman looking back at me had my face, but there was something new in her eyes. Something that hadn't been there this morning. Fury. Cold, calculated fury. I gathered the folder, locked Dad's office, and hugged Helen goodbye. "Whatever happens," Helen said, "your father would be proud of how you handle it. I know I will be." The drive to Patricia Morrison's office took 20 minutes. Her firm, Morrison and Associates, occupied an elegant building in the historic district, all brick and brass and old money, the kind of place that whispered power rather than shouted it. Trevor was already in the waiting room when I arrived, looking impatient and eager. He'd changed into a different suit, one I'd bought him for Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on me. "There you are," he said, standing. "I was starting to worry. Where'd you go?" "I needed some air. Time to think." "Well, let's get this over with. The sooner we know where we stand, the sooner we can start planning our future." Our future. There was no our future. There never had been, I realized. Just his future, built on my destruction. Patricia's assistant appeared. "Ms. Morrison is ready for you. Please follow me." The conference room was large and imposing, with a mahogany table that could seat 20, but today there were only a few chairs arranged at one end. Patricia sat at the head of the table, a stack of documents in front of her. To her left sat 2 men in suits I didn't recognize. To her right, 2 police officers in uniform. Trevor froze when he saw the police. "What's going on? Why are there cops here?" "Please sit down," Patricia said, her voice calm and professional. "Both of you." I took a seat directly across from Patricia. Trevor sat next to me, but I could feel the tension radiating off him. "Let me be clear about why we're all here," Patricia began. "Mr. Zhao, I'm Patricia Morrison, executor of Marcus Chen's estate. These gentlemen to my left are Robert Chen, Marcus's brother and co-trustee of the estate, and David Wu, the family's accountant. These officers are Detective Sarah Martinez and Detective James Cooper. They're here in an official capacity." Trevor's face had gone pale. "I don't understand. This is just a will reading. Why would police need to be here?" Patricia ignored him, turning to me instead. "Ms. Chen, I'm very sorry for your loss. Your father was an exceptional man and a brilliant strategist. He left very specific instructions regarding his estate and regarding circumstances that would affect the distribution of his assets." She opened the folder in front of her. "Let me start with the basics. Marcus Chen's estate is valued at approximately $473 million. This includes Chen Holdings, various properties, investments, cash assets, and personal effects." Trevor leaned forward, practically salivating. I wanted to laugh at how obvious he was. "The entirety of the estate," Patricia continued, her eyes never leaving mine, "goes to his daughter, Lily Chen, through a series of trusts designed to protect the assets from any claims, legal actions, or attempts at coercion." "Wait," Trevor interrupted. "What about me? I'm her husband. We're married. Doesn't that mean—" "It means nothing, Mr. Zhao," Patricia cut him off, her voice ice. "You have no legal claim to any portion of Marcus Chen's estate. In fact, given the evidence we're about to discuss, you're lucky if you don't end up in prison." Trevor shot to his feet. "Evidence? What evidence? This is insane. Lily, what is she talking about?" I met his eyes for the first time since sitting down. "Sit down, Trevor." Something in my voice made him obey. Good. He was finally beginning to understand. Patricia slid a document across the table. "This is a comprehensive report compiled by private investigators hired by Marcus Chen 6 months ago. It details your systematic theft from Chen Holdings, amounting to approximately $1.2 million over a 2-year period. Trevor's face went from pale to red. That's a lie. I never... The evidence includes bank records, electronic transfers, and testimony from your accomplice, Melissa Hartley, who has agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence. Patricia slid another document across. This is documentation of your 18-month affair with Ms. Hartley and your sale of proprietary Chen Holdings information to Hartley Properties, constituting corporate espionage. Lily. Trevor turned to me, his expression desperate. Baby, please. Let me explain. This isn't what it looks like. Don't. My voice came out steady, though my heart was racing. Don't say anything else, Patricia continued relentlessly. We also have evidence of a $5 million life insurance policy taken out on your wife without her knowledge, and records of your internet searches regarding accidental deaths, untraceable poisons, and ways to make suicide look convincing. The room went silent. Even I hadn't known about that last part. My father had protected me from knowing the full extent of Trevor's plans, but now, sitting here, watching my husband's face cycle through denial, rage, and fear, I understood why. Trevor had been planning to kill me. Mr. Zhao, Detective Martinez spoke up. We'd like you to come to the station to answer some questions regarding these allegations. This is harassment, Trevor shouted, standing again. I want a lawyer. Lily, tell them this is insane. We're married. We love each other. This is just your father trying to control you from beyond the grave. I stood slowly, gathering my purse. When I spoke, my voice was calm and clear. Trevor, you stole from my family. You committed crimes against my father's company. You betrayed me in every way possible, and you were planning to kill me for money you were never going to get. I wasn't... He reached for my arm, but Detective Cooper stepped between us. Don't touch her, Mr. Zhao. Patricia stood as well. Lily, you should go. Officers, he's all yours. As I walked toward the door, Trevor's voice followed me, desperate now. Lily, please. You can't do this to me. I love you. We can work this out. I stopped at the door and looked back at him one final time. This man I'd shared 4 years with. This man I'd trusted with my heart, my home, my life. This stranger. You never loved me, Trevor. You loved what you thought I could give you. But here's what you need to understand. My father built his empire from nothing, and he taught me everything he knew. You didn't marry a weak woman you could manipulate. You married Marcus Chen's daughter. And we Chens don't just survive, we conquer. I walked out, leaving him there with the police and the ruins of his plans. In the elevator, my phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Are you okay? I typed back, better than okay, what's next? Her response came immediately. Now we rebuild. Your father left detailed instructions for the transition. Also, you have a security team waiting for you in the lobby. Use them. Trevor's gambling debts mean dangerous people will be looking for him, and they might come after you. The elevator doors opened, and 2 men in dark suits straightened. Ms. Chen, we're from Sentinel Security. Your father hired us last month. We'll be with you around the clock until this situation is resolved. I looked at them. These strangers my father had hired to protect me from the man I'd married, and felt the full weight of his love. Even knowing he was dying, even in his last months, he'd been thinking of me, protecting me, preparing me. Thank you, I told them. Let's go home. I have a seat. Lot to do. Because this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Trevor had stolen 4 years of my life. He'd betrayed me, planned to murder me, and sold out my father's company, but he'd failed. And now I had to figure out who I was without him, what I wanted without his lies coloring my choices. I had to become the woman my father had always known I could be. As we drove toward home, my home, I reminded myself, in my name alone, I pulled out my phone and looked at the photos I'd taken of the evidence. Then I opened a new note and started typing. Day 1 of the rest of my life. Trevor is gone. Dad is gone. The company is mine. The money is mine. The future is mine. Time to figure out what I want to do with it all. Time to honor Dad's legacy by building something extraordinary. Time to prove that the only person who ever bet on Trevor Zhao made the worst mistake of his worthless life when he married me thinking I'd be his victim. I'm not a victim. I'm a Chen, and the Chens always win. I sent the note to myself as a reminder, then deleted it from my phone. Some thoughts needed to be private. We pulled into my driveway, and I looked up at the house that had always been mine, though I'd let Trevor believe we owned it together. He'd never even checked the deed. He'd just assumed, because that's what entitled men do. His car was still in the garage. His clothes were still in our closet. His lies were still woven through every room of this house. Tomorrow, I would start the process of removing every trace of him. Tonight, I would sleep alone in my father's daughter's house and dream about the future he'd made possible. But first, I had one more thing to do. I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. Found my father's number, even though I knew he couldn't answer. And I typed out a message I knew he'd never read. I love you, Dad. Thank you for everything. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't see. Thank you for protecting me even when I didn't know I needed protection. Thank you for believing I was strong enough to handle the truth. I promise you, I won't let you down. I'll make you proud. Watch me. I hit send, and the message failed, as I knew it would. But somehow, I felt like he'd gotten it anyway. Standing in my driveway, with security guards flanking me and the weight of an empire on my shoulders, I looked up at the cloudy sky and smiled. The storm was coming. Trevor's gambling debts, the legal proceedings, the restructuring of the company, the painful process of divorce, and probably a criminal trial. But I was ready, because I was Marcus Chen's daughter. And Marcus Chen had taught me that storms don't break you if you know how to navigate them. They just clear away the dead wood and make room for new growth. Trevor had underestimated me. He'd seen a soft heart and mistaken it for a weak spine. He was about to learn the difference. I squared my shoulders, nodded to my security team, and walked into my house. My father's voice echoed. In my memory, be fierce, be smart, be safe. I could do that. I would do that. And more than that, I would thrive. Because the game wasn't over. It had only just begun. And this time, I knew all the rules, all the players, and exactly what was at stake. This time, I was playing to win. The first night alone in my house felt like learning to breathe underwater. Every shadow held Trevor's shape. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like his footsteps. But I didn't run. I didn't hide. I sat in the kitchen with a glass of wine I didn't drink and let the silence teach me what freedom felt like. My phone buzzed at midnight. Unknown number. You ruined everything. Trevor's voice was raw, desperate. Those people I owe money to, Lily, they're not going to just let this go. They're going to come after me, after you. Then I suggest you call the police, I said calmly. Oh, wait, you can't. Because you're already talking to them about your crimes? This isn't a game. His voice cracked. These are dangerous people. Lily, please, just give me something. Anything. 100,000. 50. Just enough to buy me time. You plan to kill me, Trevor. Why would I give you anything?" The line went silent for a long moment, then quieter. I never would have actually done it. The life insurance, the searches, that was just... I was desperate. I was in over my head. But I love you. I really do. "No," I said softly. "You don't. And I don't think you ever did. Goodbye, Trevor." I blocked his number and changed all my locks before sunrise. The next week blurred together in a cascade of lawyers, meetings, and revelations. Patricia Morrison proved to be exactly what my father had promised, a legal shark with a conscience. She walked me through every aspect of Dad's carefully constructed defenses. "Your father spent his last months building a fortress around you," she explained in her office 3 days after the funeral. "The company is yours through a trust that prevents any hostile takeovers or legal claims from Trevor. Your grandmother's money is similarly protected. He even bought out your mortgage entirely and put the deed solely in your name 18 months ago. He knew that long ago. He suspected. Your father was brilliant at reading people. He started noticing small things, Trevor's spending habits, the way he talked about money, his interest in your family's assets. So he started investigating. The proof came later, but the instinct was immediate." I stared at the document spread across her conference table. My entire life, reorganized and secured without my knowledge. I should have seen it myself. "Love makes us blind to red flags we'd spot in anyone else," Patricia said gently. "Don't blame yourself for trusting your husband. Blame him for being unworthy of that trust." The divorce papers were filed that afternoon. Trevor, currently in custody pending bail hearing, couldn't contest them. His lawyer, a public defender now that his assets were frozen, advised him to sign everything. But the real shock came 5 days after the funeral, when I walked into Chen Holdings for my first day as official CEO. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. I arrived at 8, wanting time to settle into my father's office. My office now. Helen met me at the elevator with red eyes, but a genuine smile. "He'd be so proud of you," she said, handing me a coffee the way Dad used to like it. Force of habit, probably, but it made me feel close to him. The office looked different in morning light, bigger somehow, more intimidating. I sat in Dad's chair and felt the weight of 40 years of work pressing down on my shoulders. A knock at the door. "Ms. Chen, the board is assembling." Time to face them. The men and women who'd worked with my father for decades, who probably saw me as the grieving daughter playing at businesswoman. They were about to learn otherwise. The boardroom fell silent when I entered. 12 faces turned toward me, some sympathetic, some skeptical, one openly hostile. Richard Zhang, the CFO who'd been angling for control of the company for years. "Gentlemen, ladies." I took my seat at the head of the table, in my father's chair. "Thank you for your patience during this transition. I know my father's death was sudden, and the circumstances surrounding my husband's arrest have been shocking." "With all due respect," Richard interrupted, "this company needs stable leadership, not someone learning on the job during a personal crisis." "You're right," I agreed, and watched surprise flicker across his face. This company does need stable leadership, which is why I spent the last 72 hours reviewing every file, every contract, every decision made in the past 5 years. I opened my laptop and projected a spreadsheet onto the screen behind me, including these questionable consulting fees paid to Zhang Associates, your brother's firm, Richard. Fees totaling $2.3 million for services that, as far as I can determine, were never actually rendered. The room went dead silent. "My father knew about this," I continued, watching Richard's face drain of color. He kept detailed records. He was building a case, but he died before he could act on it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign, effective immediately. You're going to repay every cent you stole. And in exchange, I won't press criminal charges or destroy your reputation in this industry. Richard stood, his face purple. You can't prove anything. I can prove everything. My father was meticulous. Patricia? I nodded to the attorney sitting quietly in the corner. Patricia stood and slid a thick folder across the table. Bank records, emails, testimony from employees who participated in the fraud under duress. Mr. Zhang, you have until noon to clean out your desk and submit your resignation. Otherwise, we file charges and you'll be joining Mr. Zhao in custody. Richard grabbed the folder, looked at the evidence, and walked out without another word. His resignation letter arrived by email 20 minutes later. I turned back to the board. Anyone else have concerns about my leadership? Silence. Then Margaret Liu, the head of acquisitions, smiled. Your father taught you well. Welcome to Chen Holdings, Ms. Chen. The meeting lasted 3 more hours. We discussed the Hartley Properties acquisition, now complete, with Melissa Hartley terminated and the entire executive team replaced. We reviewed ongoing projects, planned expansions, and addressed the media storm surrounding Trevor's arrest. We should distance the company from the scandal, someone suggested. No, I said firmly. We're going to own it. We're going to release a statement explaining that Chen Holdings takes corporate espionage seriously, that we cooperated fully with law enforcement, and that we have zero tolerance for criminal behavior. We turn this into a story about integrity, not shame. By the time the meeting ended, I could see the shift in their eyes. I wasn't just Marcus Chen's daughter anymore. I was the CEO. I'd earned it in that room, with that confrontation, with those decisions. Helen was waiting outside with more coffee. Your father would have handled Richard exactly the same way, she said quietly. Quick, decisive, and merciful enough to avoid a public battle. Did Dad know about Richard? He knew about everyone's secrets. He just chose when to use that knowledge. She smiled sadly. That's what made him dangerous. Not cruelty, but patience. I spent the rest of the day in meetings, reviewing files, making decisions. By the time evening came, I was exhausted but exhilarated. This was what I was meant to do, not consult, not advise, lead. The security team drove me home at 7 p.m. The house felt less haunted now, or maybe I felt less haunted. My phone rang as I poured a glass of wine. A different number, but I recognized the area code. Trevor's mother. You destroyed my son, she said without preamble. He made mistakes, yes, but you didn't have to ruin his entire life. Your son planned to kill me for money, I replied calmly. He stole from my family. He committed crimes. I didn't ruin his life. He did that himself. He's my baby. He's scared and alone and facing prison because of you. No, he's facing prison because of his choices. And I'm sorry you're hurting Mrs. Zhao. I truly am. But your son stopped being my problem the moment I learned he saw me as a target instead of a wife. I hung up before she could respond. Blocked that number too. 3 weeks passed in a blur of restructuring and rebuilding. Trevor made bail, his parents mortgaged their house, but he was ordered to stay away from me. The divorce proceeded rapidly. He signed everything his lawyer put in front of him, desperate to avoid additional charges. Then came the day of his criminal trial. Patricia advised me not to attend, but I went anyway. I needed to see it through. Trevor looked smaller in the courtroom, worn down. His expensive suit, the one I'd bought him, hung loose on his frame. When our eyes met across the room, I saw no love there, no regret, just resentment and hatred. The trial lasted 2 days. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, emails, testimony from Melissa Hartley, who'd already pleaded guilty to conspiracy, the life insurance policy, the internet search history. The prosecutor painted a picture of systematic fraud and premeditated murder. Trevor's defense tried to argue he'd never actually attempted to harm me, that the searches were just morbid curiosity, that the insurance policy was standard. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Trevor collapsed in his chair. His mother sobbed. His father sat stone-faced. I felt nothing. No triumph, no vindication. Just a quiet certainty that justice had been served. The sentencing came 2 weeks later. 15 years for the embezzlement and corporate espionage. Another 7 for conspiracy to commit murder, to be served consecutively. 22 years total. Trevor was 36 years old. He'd be 58 when he got out, if he served the full sentence. "How do you feel?" Patricia asked as we left the courthouse. "Like I can finally breathe," I admitted. "Like I can finally move forward." And I did. Over the next 6 months, I transformed Chen Holdings. We expanded into sustainable development, partnering with environmental groups to create green commercial spaces. We established a scholarship fund in my father's name for first-generation college students studying business. We implemented strict ethics protocols and whistleblower protections. I also transformed myself. I started therapy to process the betrayal and learn to trust again. I took up kickboxing, something Dad would have loved. I traveled to places Trevor had always vetoed: Tokyo, Barcelona, Cape Town. I learned who I was without him, without Dad, just Lily Chen standing on her own. Helen retired after 40 years with the company. At her farewell party, she pulled me aside. "Your father left you one more thing," she said, handing me a small envelope. Instructions were to give it to you after everything settled. Inside was a key and a note in Dad's handwriting. "Lily, if you're reading this, then you've survived. You've thrived. I knew you would. This key opens a safe deposit box at First National Bank, box 2847. Inside, you'll find letters I wrote to you over the years, thoughts I never knew how to say out loud, advice I wanted to give you, dreams I had for your future. You don't need my advice anymore. You've proven you're stronger and smarter than I ever imagined. But maybe, on hard days, you'll want to hear your old man's voice again. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm watching over you always. Live fully. Love fearlessly. Lead brilliantly. Dad." I visited the bank the next day. The safe deposit box contained 43 letters, one for every year of my life. Letters about my first day of school, my college graduation, my wedding day, where he'd written about his concerns, but also his hope that I'd found happiness. Letters about business philosophy, life lessons, love and loss, and legacy. I read them all in one sitting, crying through most of them, laughing through others. The last letter was dated the day before he died. "My dearest Lily, tomorrow I'm having lunch with you at our favorite dim sum place. You'll laugh at my jokes. I'll pretend your jokes are funny. They're really not, my love. You got your mother's humor, which is to say, none. I won't tell you that I'm tired, that my heart feels like it's running on borrowed time, that the doctors have given me months, maybe weeks. I won't tell you because I want you to remember me laughing, not dying. By the time you read this, you'll have faced Trevor's betrayal. You'll have taken control of the company. You'll have become the woman I always knew you were. But here's what I need you to know. This isn't the end of your story. This is just the beginning. You're 37 years old. You have decades ahead of you. Decades to build, to love, to live. Don't let Trevor's poison make you cynical. Don't let this betrayal close your heart. Yes, be careful, be wise, be selective, but be open too. Real love exists. I had it with your mother, brief and beautiful as it was. You deserve it too. And when you find it, when you find someone who sees you as a partner, not a prize, who challenges you instead of using you, who builds you up instead of tearing you down, remember this. Love is always a risk, but it's a risk worth taking. Be brave, my daughter. In business and in life, take chances, make mistakes, build something extraordinary, and know that wherever I am, I'm cheering you on. Always. Your loving father, Marcus Chen P.S. When you're ready, there's a dog waiting for you at the Riverside Animal Shelter. Golden Retriever. 3 years old. Name's Duke. I've been sponsoring him for 6 months, waiting for you to be ready for companionship that isn't complicated by human ambitions. He's a good boy. You'll love him. I laughed through my tears. Of course Dad had found me a dog. Of course he'd thought of everything. I went to the shelter that afternoon. Duke was exactly as described. Golden, gentle, with warm eyes that saw straight through to my soul. When I knelt down, he rested his head on my shoulder like he'd been waiting for me. "You want to come home, boy?" I whispered. His tail wagged. I took that as a yes. A year after Dad's death, I stood in the conference room of Chen Holdings, looking out at the city he'd loved. The company was thriving. The scandal was behind us. Trevor was in prison. Richard Zhang had quietly left the industry. And I was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret Liu. "Drinks tonight? Found a new wine bar you'll love." Margaret had become more than a board member. She'd become a friend. Someone who understood the pressures of leadership without wanting to exploit them. I'd made other friends, too. Genuine ones. People who liked me for me, not for what I could give them. Duke lay at my feet, snoring softly. Best office companion ever. Helen had been right. Dad would be proud. I pulled out my phone and did something I'd been doing every week since his death. I texted his number, even though it was disconnected. "Hey, Dad. Year 1 complete. Company's up 23% in revenue. Launched the scholarship program. First cohort starts next fall. Duke says hi. He ate your favorite chair, sorry. Dating someone new. Slowly, carefully, but it feels real. He's an architect. Builds things like you did. You'd like him. Miss you every day. Love you always. Lily." The message failed to send, as always. But that was okay. I didn't need a response. I just needed to remember that everything I'd become, everything I'd survived, was because of the foundation he'd built. Marcus Chen had given me more than money or a company. He'd given me the truth when it hurt. He'd given me protection when I didn't know I needed it. He'd given me the tools to save myself. And in the end, that was the greatest inheritance of all. I gathered my things, called Duke to heel, and headed home. Not to the house I'd shared with Trevor. I'd sold that 6 months ago. To my new condo downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. A space that was entirely mine, untainted by lies. My phone rang as I drove. The architect, David. "Still on for dinner?" "Absolutely. Pick me up at 7. "It's a date." "Hey, Lily." "Yeah?" "I'm really glad I met you." I smiled, something that came easier now. "Me too." We hung up, and I realized something had shifted. For the first time since Dad's death, since Trevor's betrayal, since that horrible day at the funeral, I was looking forward instead of back. The past would always be part of me. The pain, the betrayal, the loss. But it didn't define me anymore. I was Lily Chen, daughter of Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Holdings, survivor, leader, and now, finally, someone ready to live again. Trevor had thought he could destroy me for a payday that never came. Instead, I destroyed his plans, exposed his crimes, and built something better from the ashes of his deception. Dad had been right about everything. About Trevor, about my strength, about the future waiting for me on the other side of this nightmare. As I pulled into my building's parking garage, I looked up at my floor, lights glowing warmly in the evening dark. Duke barked excitedly in the back seat, ready to be home. Home. My home. Built on truth this time, not lies. I'd survived the storm. I'd conquered the battlefield. And now, finally, I was ready to enjoy the peace I'd earned. "Thanks, Dad," I whispered to the darkening sky. "For everything. For seeing what I couldn't see. For protecting me. For believing in me. For making sure I'd be okay." And I was okay. Better than okay. I was free. The elevator doors closed, carrying me up to my new life. Behind me, the past. Ahead of me, possibility. Trevor had said at Dad's funeral that my money was finally his. He'd been wrong about everything. The money was mine. The company was mine. The future was mine. And I was just getting started. Because Marcus Chen's daughter didn't just survive betrayal and loss, she turned it into power, and used that power to build something extraordinary. The elevator doors opened. Duke bounded out ahead of me, tail wagging, always happy to be home. I followed him, smiling, ready for whatever came next, ready to live the life my father had fought so hard to give me, ready to make him proud. And somewhere, I like to think, he was watching, smiling that knowing smile of his, proud of the woman I'd become, the woman I'd always had the potential to be, his daughter, his legacy, his proof that love, even in death, could protect and save. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. Home, future, mine, all mine. And it was perfect. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.